sun rose, and with it did Nao and Evelyn. And as they left the inn, the people who resided at the tables throughout the main room the previous night had not moved. They continued to drink and quietly chat with each other, but their movements and mannerisms were stiff and rigid, as if their joints were made of stone. But they paid no mind as they walked outside, greeted by the warm morning sun and the hustle and bustle of a seemingly normal town.
Should we split up?
I can check out the marketplace.
Let's meet at that church just down the road in an hour. Be on your guard.
The two then went their separate ways, keeping a watchful eye on the inhabitants around them. Nao ventured down the street, passing by a carriage with a man and woman riding atop. They gave him a blank stare as they rode by, as did numerous other people. One such person he carefully approached, who seemed to be washing clothes in a bucket on the front porch of her dwelling. Her hands were wrinkled, as if she had been washing for hours, and she looked up at him.
Excuse me, miss? Might I ask a question of you?
She remained silent, her eyes dark and empty. Being closer, Nao could more clearly see that there was not a shred of dexterity to her movements, as she repeatedly dunked the garment into the bucket. Though silent, her behavior vividly reminded him of Gats, the strange old man they had encountered at the gate. But this woman before him could not have been 10 years older than he, for a measure of youth remained on her countenance. In this moment of awaiting a response, the surrounding area had fallen silent as the handful of people on this part of the street halted their activity and quietly watched Nao. Chills ran down his spine as he became suddenly aware of this and backed away from the woman, glancing about. He opened his mind and scanned the area. Once again, not a trace of mana could be seen.
Surely if this were a matter of possession by spirits, then the spirits could be seen within their beings. Certainly forces of life are requisite of mana. But perhaps I'm wrong.
He shook his head and continued down the street, wisps of energy trailing behind him. The marketplace of Rolstead was alive and buzzing with activity. Merchants chatted with prospective customers as people mingled through the area. Evelyn remained to the side, leaning against a building as her eyes scanned over the open area. She surmised there were perhaps 400 or 500 people in attendance. Evelyn carefully made her way through the crowd, trying to remain discreet as she looked around, seeking to find anything out of the ordinary. But it all felt out of the ordinary, as the people's movements were lethargic and clumsy. Suddenly, she collided with someone.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It was a woman about her age. Her brown hair was tied back, and her gown was covered in patches of dirt and grime. She stared at Evelyn without saying a word or giving any expression of what just occurred.
Are you all right?
Her silent gaze remained steady, and Evelyn suddenly noticed that some members of the crowd around them also began to stare with dark eyes and blank expressions. Evelyn buffered her mana and continued forward, shoving her anxiety in the corner of her mind. When she felt she had broken line of sight, she left the crowd and leaned against another building on the edge of the marketplace, heaving a sigh. She opened her mind then, and found empty husks in her examination. She turned to the right and saw one bright light in the sea of sand. Evelyn tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. The first person in Rolstead who seemed to have a soul. She ventured forth, weaving through the crowd as she made her way closer. It was a merchant of middle age, with brownish red hair. He diligently spoke to a woman as she browsed the wares strewn about his stall, while a horse, presumably his, resided behind him. Suddenly, the woman reached out, and dark tendrils of what appeared to be black smoke snaked outward from her being and entered the man's body. He froze, his eyes growing cold and dark. Evelyn watched in horror as the light of his being quickly diminished, like a candle snuffed out by the wind. She looked around, and no one seemed to pay any mind to what just occurred in broad view. Evelyn turned and quickly made her way out of the marketplace. She had to tell Nao. Nao approached the church that resided in a bend in the cobblestone street as he passed by several people who remained where they were, their dark eyes tracking his every movement. To the side of the wooden doors of the church was a man in armor who stood guard. He watched as Nao walked over to him, holding the same blank stare as the others. A quick scan told Nao that this man also was devoid of mana. Nao was about to speak when he heard someone call his name.
Nao!
What did you find?
I finally found someone with mana, but...
She glanced at the guard, who continued to stare at them. In a hushed whisper, she told Nao all that she saw.
Sounds like spirit possession to me. But that doesn't explain why...
Nary a ghost or sprite roams about these parts, mate. No dark forces dare creep round the Church of the Almighty.
Sorry, we didn't mean to accuse.
Before he could continue speaking, the man quickly thrust his hand forward, and in the blink of an eye, dark tendrils of malevolent energy launched at Nao. In a panic, Evelyn lashed out with a burst of magic, knocking back all three. Nao fell to the ground, and his eyes darkened.
What have we here?
Nao quickly gathered his senses and dispelled the darkness from his body, residual magic staining the cobblestones beneath him.
Get up! Nao, get up!
The guard drew his weapon and rushed at Evelyn, swinging madly. She ducked under his sword and sliced his thigh open with her dagger. Thick, black ichor gushed down his leg.
Filth! We will march on your lands and take all!
As Nao gathered himself, Evelyn deflected another swing by the guard and quickly thrust her dagger into the man's throat.
Oh!
The guard crumpled to the ground, clutching at his throat, as more black ichor spilled onto the cobblestone.
Evelyn, we need to leave! Now!
She spun just in time to see a posse of townspeople lurching down the street. Despite their stiff movements and rigid joints, they covered ground quickly, gnashing their teeth and snarling like animals. As Nao drew his blade, Evelyn retrieved her dagger and hoisted the longbow in her hands. She then put her fingers in her mouth and, adding a dash of magic on top, gave a piercing whistle that echoed across the lands. Back in the forest, Casper's eyes shot open and he took flight, heading towards Rolstead.
We need to find an open space!
Quickly! The gate is this way! This way!
Spoonaventa! Look out!
Seemingly out of nowhere, a woman jumped at Nao, tackling him to the ground. She glared at him with dark eyes as black sludge oozed from her mouth. She opened her maw and dug her teeth into his neck. Without thinking, Nao quickly fired a pulse of magic, which sent her flying through the front window of a nearby building. Evelyn then projected a magical barrier around them as the mob closed in. Nao stood to his feet, and they watched as the townspeople clawed and smacked the barrier until their fists bled, snarling and gnashing their teeth.
They're like savage animals.
The two mages stood back to back as Neo held a hand over the wound in his neck, nursing the tissues with magic.
We need to clear our path. On my mark!
They turned to face down the road, the main gate they previously entered from standing in the distance. As Casper circled above, they quickly charged their mana, and in a single motion they projected the barrier forward and launched the mob to the sides of the street.
Go! Go!
Evelyn sprinted down the road, Neo close behind, as Casper quickly landed just outside the town. Finally, they made it to the gate, where Gats now stood to his feet and rushed at the mages. With a wave of his hand, Neo sent the old man flying to the ground, as the mob followed close behind. The two jumped on Casper's back, and the dragon immediately launched into the air. They watched as the town gradually diminished in the distance, soaring over the treetops.
Are you okay? Did they hurt you?
I killed them. I killed them. I've never
Hey,
killed
listen to me.
anyone.
Listen to me! You did what you had to.
Neo, I've never killed anyone before.
You saw what I saw. Those people had no souls. They're just empty husks. Close your heart to it.
He carefully wiped away the tears that fell from Evelyn's eyes as she gave a shaky sigh. After a moment, her eyes focused on his neck.
That looks pretty bad. Here, let me help you.
Remnants of the black sludge from the woman's mouth mixed with his blood. Her teeth certainly broke skin, but not much damage was done beyond that. Still, it stung. Evelyn placed her hand on his neck, and warmth flooded his body as her magic slowly mended the tissues until the wound only appeared as a dark purple bruise.
Thanks.
After what I saw, I thought I almost lost you back there.
Have you seen magic like that before? It went straight to my mind and I heard a voice.
No, I haven't. What did the voice say?
It said spawn of Enta. Just like some of the other people were saying.
Everything about that place is just wrong. I think there's something bigger going on.
There definitely will be, since that church guard threatened war.
Do you think this has anything to do with Ikane's war with New Voltum?
I don't know, maybe. We need to tell Maze everything that happened and maybe send word for troops. Rolstead is completely lost.
Casper beat his wings as they gained altitude, pointing his nose towards home. Neo watched the ground rush underneath them, as the church guard's words echoed in his mind. They had to get word to the capital city as soon as possible.